The Lakers played the Warriors on opening night, and it did not exactly go well for them. And this spawned a bunch of criticism and backlash and hate towards the Lakers, as you would typically expect among the Lakers fan base. But frankly, I think there are more reasons to be positive coming out of this game than there are to be negative. And moreover, for the Lakers' future as a whole, I think there's more reason to be positive. The Lakers are not entirely without hope, and I'm going to tell you why. Before I continue on this video, if you end up enjoying it, please be sure to subscribe, also drop a like, and more importantly, quick call to action here, go subscribe to my podcast called The Shoot Around. It's a podcast we're going to be doing once a week with me, Alex Hoops, who you know from doing these videos on Mondays whenever I'm actually, getting them done, and Rudy from editing these videos. That's the two hosts. It's a really good podcast. We talk about basketball, sometimes other shit, but we're going to be back on the grind now that the season is back. So that link is going to be in the description. I'd really appreciate it if you came through. We do live shows. They're really fun. Also, you can become a member and join a Discord and talk to us. Link in the description, all that. With that out of the way, let's talk about the Lakers. Now, this video is essentially going to come in two parts. I'm going to talk about how the Lakers did in their opener against the Golden State Warriors, and I am going to talk about what their future looks like after this year. First things first, if you want to see a more in-depth, just raw thoughts as to what I believe about the Lakers and that opening game against the Warriors, you can go check out my second channel video on the subject. I'm uploading probably 2 second channel videos a day for the foreseeable future. But for the quick summary, essentially, I believe the Lakers played a good game for about 3/4 of the game, and then the Warriors were just a better team, and they did exactly what the Warriors tend to do and just blew them out of the water. But as much negativity came from the commentary of this game after the fact, I believe that in general, there were more positive signs for the Lakers to be better than they were last year by quite a considerable margin. Now, first things first, all three of Russell Westbrook, LeBron James, and Anthony Davis actually played, which is already a huge difference between them and last year's Lakers, because I believe they only play like 13 games combined or something like that. If you get a relatively healthy version of this roster, automatically I think that makes a significant difference, because frankly, the big three on the floor, even though Russell Westbrook's not really filling his side of that big three all the time, but when those three players play, they do look like, hey, I kind of see the vision for what the Lakers were going for when they traded for Russ. Obviously, this is just making the best of a bad situation, but I do think a healthy Lakers team, that automatically makes a huge difference. I think that goes without saying. Moreover, Anthony Davis looked fantastic in game one, which I was concerned about, being that he'd missed so much time last year, and he played as bad as he did last year when he actually did play. His efficiency on jump shots was god-awful last year. But he was really assertive about getting himself into the paint, and very clearly the difference maker on the defensive end. Essentially, it looks like the Lakers can be a good defensive team when AD plays, and they will be a bad one when he doesn't. And you could literally see that in the results of the game as Anthony Davis sat down. Whenever Anthony Davis sat, it seemed like the Warriors went on a run. Whenever he got back in the game, suddenly offense didn't come as easy for that team, and they are known for making offense look easy. Russell Westbrook was really good in game one, and I'd say played pretty much exactly the way that you actually want him to. Now, he had a few too many turnovers, but at this point with Russell Westbrook, you're going to have to accept the fact that there's some negatives that come along with them, such as said turnovers. But he took 3 threes. He didn't make any of them, but they were all good shots, I would say. I don't think he took any dumb shots in this game, which is pretty key. When he drove, he actually finished. I can only remember one layup that he missed, and it was contested enough that it was justifiable. He filled the lanes well in the fast break. He made good passes. A lot of these were passes to shooters who didn't simply make the shot, but at the very least, he played well within the system. And LeBron James opened the game really, really rough, missing a ton of jump shots, a lot of mid-range shots, but then he ended up starting to drive a little bit more. Jump shots started to come around a little bit more, and we saw LeBron James be LeBron James. It just took a little bit. And the most noteworthy thing in terms of the fact that this was a loss is that the Lakers shot 25% from three. Now, I fully understand they're a bad shooting team. Their team does not have a lot of guys who are known for hitting their threes. Lonnie Walker is a shooter in theory. Kendrick Nunn is fine. And that's about it. They signed some other dude that got some opportunity yesterday, whose name escapes me right now, who was getting some opportunity to be a shooter. But in general, they just don't have shooting like that. Austin Reeves is cool. Patrick Beverley can hit his threes. But as much as this Lakers team is not ideal for shooting the ball, no NBA team in 2022 is going to shoot on average 25% from three, let alone on 40 attempts per game, because that's how many they took yesterday, which I would take as an encouraging sign that they got that many three-point looks, and not many of them appeared to be forced whatsoever. So, assuming that the Lakers shot 33% from three that game, we probably would have seen a much closer game, because it was really the lack of shooting that did them in. But you take LeBron being LeBron, hopefully for a full game instead of half of it. You take Russ, understanding his limitations and playing as smartly as he can and taking mostly good shots, making mostly good passes. And you take Anthony Davis being a defensive juggernaut and being aggressive getting into the paint and not settling for jump shots. And hopefully when he does take those jump shots, they'll go in more this year than they did last year. I think there's reasons to be optimistic. Not that the Lakers are going to be contenders or anything, but they don't have to be the disaster that they were last year. I think if health permits and everybody has their head on their shoulders, things can go right. And I said this about Russell Westbrook before. I really feel like he's going to have a little bit of a bounce back year. Not to the point where he's back to being all-star level by any means, but I do think it's well within the realm of possibility that he ends up being pretty damn solid for the Lakers, because last year was rock bottom and you can't go lower than rock bottom. I truly don't think it's possible for this Lakers team to sink any lower than they did last year. I think there's reason to believe that they can at the very least be a play-in team, probably even solidly a playoff team. I believe I picked them for the 8th or 9th seed in my Western Conference standings, which we did on the podcast, so go check that out if you want to see my thoughts on the conference standings for both conference. Regardless, I do think they're not going to be this completely non-competitive, bad, terrible basketball team this year. Maybe I'm wrong to be hopeful about them, but that's how I feel. That's how I felt about this game. In a game where the Warriors won by 15 points or something like that. But ultimately, there were so many positive signs for the Lakers, and I'm going to choose to focus on those more than the negative ones, because something like 25% from three, something like LeBron starting off the game 0 for 7, shit like that's not going to happen regularly. With that said, let's move on to part 2 of this video, which is one thing that I've seen a lot of people do with this Russell Westbrook situation is completely jump the gun in terms of what the Lakers should do revolving around him, because there's a lot of talks around the trade for, there was a trade report that came out after the game that was supposed to be some big dunk on them, they could have done this trade. It was Mike Conley and Bojan Bogdanovic for Russell Westbrook, and that would have been cool, but it was also longer contracts that you have to worry about. I think Bogdan might be on or Bojan, whichever one it is, might be on a 1-year contract, but I digress. The other trade, the bigger one that everyone talks about, is Miles Turner and Buddy Hield. And I'll be the first to tell you that Lakers roster would look a lot better with Buddy Hield and Miles Turner instead of Russell Westbrook, even if I am being optimistic about Russ going into this year. But, key but there, contracts. Russell Westbrook's contract expires in 2023. So the Lakers going into next season, I understand it's how long is the clock ticking on Anthony Davis's health? How long can it continue to tick on LeBron James's age? How many more years can LeBron James be a superstar caliber guy? Now, Miles Turner's contract is expiring between those two, but Buddy Hield's is not, so that's instantly going to take about $20 million in cap space for Buddy. And more importantly, the trade would involve 2 first-round picks And frankly, I'd rather just hold out this year, have that $47 million in cap space rather than $27 million in cap space, and have those 2 first-round picks either just to have them or to trade them later. Like, the Lakers can put together a much better roster by waiting than by actually trading Russell Westbrook. So it's important to make note of that, as well as look at what the Lakers could potentially do with this upcoming offseason. That's a lot of cap space, and if they manage to sign a couple of really high-quality role players, guys who can shoot the ball, guys who can play defense, you keep Patrick Beverley around, Kendrick Nunn can stick around, I guess. Maybe you get a cool season out of Lonnie Walker. But like in general, what the Lakers are dealing with right now, it's not permanent. And there's a much tighter window for how many championships they can get out of the core of Anthony Davis and LeBron, but there's also still light at the end of this tunnel, I believe. I don't think it is impossible that LeBron James wins another championship in his career on the Los Angeles Lakers. And I think him signing the extension that he did is very much a sign of that, because, you could argue is him getting his money, but I think LeBron was always going to get his money. Choosing to extend with the Lakers was a clearly a decision that was based on the fact that Russell Westbrook's not going to be here forever. I think if Russell Westbrook was on a 4-year deal, making $40 million a year, I don't think LeBron James signs that extension. But that situation does not have to be dealt with for the entirety of the rest of his tenure in the NBA. So, going into next year, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, a bunch of role players, that's essentially what 2020 was, but I would argue with the cap space they have, they could even do a better job of surrounding the team with role players. And if you promise them essentially like, hey, Russell Westbrook's not here, we won a championship with this formula before, I'm sure you can get a plethora of pretty damn good role guys, and suddenly you are looking at a championship team once again. So, the Los Angeles Lakers this year, I don't think it's hopeless for them to be a playoff team. And for the Los Angeles Lakers going forward, I don't think it's hopeless for them to be a championship team. It's just a matter of being patient, riding out this very cataclysmic and obvious mistake, and bringing another championship to LA and getting LeBron one more before he's done. I think all of that is very well possible. So, maybe not going to get as many likes and watches on this. Views. What the fuck am I? Like, Jesus Christ, sound like my mother. Either way, maybe not going to get as many views on this because it's not a negative take, but it's also the Lakers, so I guess we'll see. Anyway, shout out to Rudy for editing this video. Go check out the podcast, as I mentioned, and goodbye.